Hey everybody, this is Eric from BuzzSumo. Happy Tuesday. Hope you all had a good weekend. Hope the start of your week is going well. Another week, we're all kind of back at the grind, but I hope it's off to a good start. We are really looking forward to this today. We're going to go through some strategies for finding influencers in BuzzSumo. It's going to be pretty targeted. We're going to really focus in on actually technically how to find them. What are some best practices for doing that? The session should take about 30 minutes or so, depending on questions. Please ask as many questions as you have. We definitely want to, I definitely have some best practices I want to share with you, but this is really designed to get specifically at what you're trying to do. So if you've already been working in the platform and you have some questions about some things you've been trying, or if you are just starting your test, just trying to figure out how to find the right influencers for a campaign, ask as many questions as possible. You can do that via the chat window or the Q&A panel. It's gonna go quiet here for just a moment. Looks like we're waiting for a few people to join. I'm just going to finish setting up some things and then we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here and look forward to going through this with you. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First, I hope everybody can hear me okay. If you want to give me a thumbs up, a hand raise, let me know that I'm coming through loud and clear. That would be perfect. And let me go ahead and turn my screen share on. Again, if you just want to let me know that you can see everything, we can go ahead and jump into this. Excellent. Thanks, Johnson. Much appreciated. So today, we are going to talk about finding influencers in BuzzSumo using our various tools to not just look through our database, but also what are some ideas for how to even begin a research process. Oftentimes, when we think about influencer marketing or influencer research, we have a particular goal in mind or something that we have been tasked to do as it relates to influencers starts to lay out a pathway for us. And we want to make sure that we're not making any assumptions before we start and ask the right questions before we start that process to make sure that we get ourselves to the most relevant and comprehensive results that we can. Just to get started, a little bit about me. I'm sure I've chatted with some of you before. If you've ever asked a question in the app, you've probably seen me manning the chat window, or maybe we've shared some emails back and forth. My name's Eric. I head the customer success and support team here at BuzzSumo. I come from a marketing background. I did consulting and marketing for quite a few years and also have an entertainment background. So I'm very, very interested in this intersection between finding creative solutions to problems, but using data to inform those decisions. Feel free to email me, find me on Twitter, send me a request on LinkedIn. I'm happy to make connections and keep talking and see if I can help you out with something post this session today. I want to start by actually telling you what I'm not going to do over the next 25 minutes. The first is I'm not going to sell to you. If the fact that I'm the head of the customer success team and not head of sales or anything like that wasn't an indication, I am not interested in selling you on why you should be using BuzzSumo, why you should spend money with us, or even why you should spend money on an influencer marketing campaign. I'm going to assume that you're here because you're either have already decided to invest in influencer marketing and you've heard that BuzzSumo might be a useful tool to do that. So my goal is really just about making sure that you get as much value out of this as possible and understand what it is that we can help with. We're also not really going to talk about how to contact influencers. This could probably be a session in and of itself. Contacting influencers, almost like running a session on email marketing and best practices for email marketing. It could take up its own 45-minute deep dive about data points and click-throughs and messaging and targeting and what's the right channel and all that kind of stuff. And all of that is to say that it depends. There's no one-size-fits-all solution for what is going to be the most successful way to engage with your influencers. I will talk a little bit about some suggestions for if you're going to open those lines of communication, how you might want to frame it or approach it. But basically, this session is really going to be about finding the influencers in the first place. And then if you do have specific questions about contacting, I'll try to do my best to answer. But we're going to kind of keep it targeted on the how. Fundamentally, BuzzSumo tracks 4 major channels or sources of potential influencers to work with. The first is Twitter, second is Instagram. We also track Facebook business pages and blogs and websites. For each of these sources, we provide a series of data points to help you determine whether or not that is somebody or some brand that has actually a measure of influence that would be worth it. That if you did engage with them, their promotion or co-marketing of something that you're working on is actually going to have an impact. For Twitter, those come down to different kinds of Twitter metrics. Classic ones like their follower count, of course, but also metrics that delve more into the relationship that they have with their audience. How often do they share other people's content? How often do they reply to their audience and create a two-way conversation? In our Instagram data, then, we provide an internal scoring mechanism to allow you to benchmark one Instagram profile versus another. It's sort of a 0 to 100 scale that helps you rank the potential impact or average engagement that an Instagram influencer drives. The third would be Facebook post engagement. So classic, one of the best ways to determine whether a Facebook page has a good level of influencer engagement with its audience is to see if when it posts something, it generates a high level of engagement, likes, comments, shares, etc. And then lastly, obviously, article engagements. One of the fundamental cores of BuzzSumo is helping you determine what content drives the most engagement over various periods of time. If we're looking for writers, journalists, bloggers, understanding how their blogs and new content gets shared out on social is going to be really valuable for determining whether a mention from them mention about us, I should say, from them in a blog that they write is going to have some impact. I mentioned that a good place to start is often checking that we're not making any assumptions about the type of influencer we're looking for, or really generally what influencer marketing even means. Oftentimes when you ask somebody, what do you think of when you think of influencer marketing, they say thought leaders, or if they work in the B2C space, all the conversation about Instagram influencers and influencers in the fashion, health, beauty, sports, entertainment space tends to come to mind. People with millions of followers and massive engagement numbers. But really an influencer can be anybody that could have a positive, direct, or important impact on your bottom line, on the growth of your campaign, on potential sales of your product or service. if you think about influencers in that way, then you can really expand your net to potentially pull in more potential contacts. Influencers could be thought leaders, could be people that are driving the conversation or the forward thinking within our industry. An influencer might also be a prospect, somebody who holds the right job title within a company where we're trying to sell into. And that person, by activating or connecting with that person becomes our champion on the inside. Influencers might also be partners. Another company in your space that maybe tackles a different kind of problem for a common audience, where if we combine our resources, we can potentially both benefit. And lastly, obviously, bloggers and journalists. The second question we might want to ask ourselves is, where is this potential contact most influential? Most influencers will, at minimum, create a good, consistent brand across multiple channels. But most influencers are still human, and if they're anything like you or me, it's hard to keep up with every single social channel that we have, especially if we're actually putting ourselves in it and not just automating everything and turning it into a retweet bot. So you can normally look at their level of engagement. I guess this kind of gets into the third question too. So where do they most engage with their audience and where are they most influential? You can usually look at how often they post, what kind of engagement they get out of their audience, and determine which is the right channel or the most influential channel that they maintain. Let's go find some. First, let's talk about the Twitter and Instagram piece. The reason we tackle these together is our Instagram data is actually tied to our Twitter database. We have about 150 million plus profiles from Twitter in our database. It's a really, really massive set of profiles. And out of that, our Instagram becomes a filter. If we wanted to filter down to just Instagram profiles, we could actually tell our crawler to say only limit results to Instagram profiles. So just know that off the bat, that if you go into the platform, and we'll go into the platform here in a moment, and you don't see an Instagram search, just know that it acts as a filter on this Twitter database. The first thing that I always recommend, since we're talking about people, is job titles. Our influencer database, specifically for Twitter and Instagram, is tied to individual bios. How do people describe themselves? Now, we could certainly use some other terms or topics or industry language to find people, but if we're really thinking about it, most of these people will put themselves forward by describing who it is that they are or what they do. I'm a content marketer. I'm a data scientist. I'm a marketing strategist. I'm a fashion blogger. You pick your poison. So thinking first and foremost about how somebody would describe themselves is a really, really good first step when starting to look through bios. The second thing is affiliations. So obviously not too far behind. We do kind of want to look at keywords and potentially hashtags. With hashtags, and we all use them, and we use them in our bio lines, and we use them to describe the work that we do. We might want to, sticking in this data range, we might want to look at big data as a topic or a keyword phrase, but we also might want to look at it as if we were typing a hashtag. Would we potentially get overlap with both of these types of searches? Of course. Some people are going to use both. Some people are going to match as relevant no matter which one of these versions we use. So you can think of this as me using kind of basic search logic to actually just cast a wider net. Right away, you can see that I've started to layer in some search operators. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Boolean style search or doing more advanced kind of searching and filtering in Google or Yahoo or any of the other search engines. There are some kind of basic principles that help you build searches in BuzzSumo. BuzzSumo is essentially also a search engine. How to run an advanced search is going to be your friend here. Right beneath the search bar is this little collapsible drop down that will give you some of those operators that you could put in, such as or, which I just used here to look for multiple terms. You can see that I can search for domains. I can look for websites that people put in their bios. I could look for exact phrases by using quotes or even exclude terms. I would get really comfortable using these terms. As in most search engine tools, your goal should be to build a very, very relevant set of results, but also try to get a good size. I mean, 200,000 big data influencers is probably too much for me to sort through. So I might have to do some filtering or narrowing of my criteria, but the principle is good, that I'm looking for a decent set that I can leverage and relevant results. My third recommendation is around companies. This is really useful for that prospecting use case that we talked about when identifying the types of influencers we might be interested in contacting. If I just put in the handle of a particular company, I'm not just going to get that company's profile. I'm going to get a lot of the people that say that they work there or are affiliated with them. And this is really, really useful if we're trying to find affiliates or partners. You know, there's a lot of different, say in this example, there's a lot of different HubSpot agencies out there that are HubSpot partners. If I just typed agency and then HubSpot, you can see that I really start to dig in to the HubSpot partner landscape. Quick one here. I mentioned that Instagram is a bit of a filter on the database. Here's how I set that filter. If I just click Has Instagram Profile and I apply the filter, you're going to see now that every single result is going to have an Instagram profile matched. Now, since we're here, before we move into some of the other databases, and again, if there's any questions or you want me to look at anything very specifically, please drop it into the chat window. We'll talk really quickly about those metrics that we mentioned. Twitter metrics. Here's the Twitter metrics that we track. I'm going to kind of go back out to that data scientist one that we started with. Twitter metrics are really useful for understanding the level of authority that somebody has when they're posting on Twitter. And they also give us a sense of how they communicate with their audience. There's also some interesting metrics here that map to an individual's domain. Now, if you are already jumping ahead of me, you can see how you can start to combine this information together to find influential bloggers and writers before we even actually get in to other kind of blogger journalist tools. Because I can search for domains and I can get their page and domain authority. So I can start to identify highly ranked websites and the writers behind them. So page and domain authority, very, very useful for determining whether or not somebody's website would rank high in search results. For those that aren't familiar with page and domain authority scores, I would encourage you to check out Moz. I think I might even be able to pull up if you're like me and you screenshot things really fast, I think I'd probably pull this up or just grab the link. I'll throw it in the chat window as well. Really, really useful for measuring on-page authority, known as page authority and domain authority. There's the Twitter followers, relatively straightforward. Obviously, we know that Twitter followers can be sometimes suspect. Maybe there's a bit of gaming going on with Twitter followers. And there's been lots of instances in research that has shown that sometimes follower accounts are not the truest metric of somebody's level of influence. And so what we want to get into is more around these conversation and retweet metrics. These give us more of a sense of who drives high average engagement when they post something. The higher, the better. Every single time this person tweets, they get retweeted 5, 6, 7, 8 times. That's amazing. Imagine if somebody with a high average retweet metric tweeted, check out BuzzSumo's brand new study on Facebook engagement. It's really, really the research piece that you need for 2019. And then they linked to our white paper. That gets retweeted 5 times. That gets seen by all these other people, all these other followers that might retweet it or like it again. And you can see how just connecting with one highly influential person on Twitter could really exponentially grow the potential reach or the eyes that might see a link to our content and potentially click through to view it. I'll give you a couple quick benchmarks here. For average retweets, I know I was saying 5, 6, 7, 2. That's all you need. An average retweet metric of 2 could vastly, vastly increase the potential reach of your content. Retweet and reply ratios, pretty straightforward. Does this person share somebody else's content? Do they just retweet somebody else? Or do they always just post their own stuff? Are they more of a megaphone? They just stand on a soapbox outside and they just yell into their megaphone. Hopefully not. Hopefully we want to see them sharing a healthy balance of their own content, but other people's content too. Reply ratios. Do they talk with their audience? If I @ somebody on Twitter and ask them a question, will they respond to me? I hope so. That level of engagement usually is a good indicator of driving a more loyal and passionate fan base. With these metrics, about 15% for each, maybe 30% in total. You want 1 out of 3 or so tweets that somebody posts to be sharing somebody else's content. It's that whole idea of, should you always just write your own blogs, always post your own blogs, or should you curate content too? There's always got to be a balance of sharing other sources of information and your own thoughts. For Instagram scores, now you can see I've still got the Instagram profile button ticked. So I'm only pulling in Instagram scores. Not surprisingly, Instagram doesn't tend to be the most activated channel for big data. We might probably see some crazy, crazy high numbers in the 90s and thousands of results if we were, say, looking in fashion, for example. But we've got a couple of good ones. This is a 0 to 100 score, higher the better. And you can see that we will pull in the handle here and we'll display the score right above. So again, the higher the better here. If you can get it all the way up to 99, terrific. But look, if you're trying to work on Instagram, my personal feeling is that anybody that seems like a good match based on their bio, the content that they produce, they're passionate about your industry, your topic, your brand, your category, etc. Build your contact list. Just because this person's level of engagement or authority is lower now doesn't mean that they might not grow it and they're not sort of working to grow it on their own. If anything, I would say build a master list of influencers in your category. You can always prioritize and decide who it is you want to reach out to for a specific campaign. But it's much easier just to start saving off influencers as you find them right away. And BuzzSumo, that's super easy. You just hover over the save button and create a project. It's simple, just like bookmarking a website. One click, we create our project, and that influencer is saved. You can see as soon as I've saved them, we'll fill that in. Now I've got owner saved. All right, so that's Twitter and Instagram. Let's jump over Facebook for a moment. Let's talk a little bit about authors. There's this really, really clever tool right here within the influencer section of the site called a top authors report. Essentially, it's a filter on our content database. For those of you that have been exploring the content analyzer and searching for the most shared articles on any particular topic, that's great. And you'll notice the focus of that is on the article itself, the title of the article, the number of engagements, and so on. But you might have noticed that within every single one of those results, we're trying to map who wrote it and when they wrote it. This essentially takes the author point of view first. Rather than looking at the individual articles, we look at authors for entire categories. And then we rank them based on their total engagements. Now, this is really useful because when you're looking for authors on a particular subject, you don't just want to find somebody who produced one article, even if it went super viral and was amazing, but then they never wrote about your topic again. That's not going to be a good target for you. That's not somebody who's demonstrated a long-term interest in your industry. You want to find people that consistently write about your topics. That's how you find the right bloggers and the journalists. So the author's report is really good for identifying people that write consistently. You can search author reports by topic, as you can see I'm doing with content marketing, or by domain. That's really useful if you're trying to find people that write on LinkedIn or Medium. Those are channels that are notoriously really difficult right now to get metrics on. It's hard to get metrics on LinkedIn outside of LinkedIn. So how do you do it? Well, look at people that publish articles on LinkedIn by using an author's search. I'll show you really quickly how this works. So I click on the top author's report, and I can just put in a topic here or a domain. You can already see some use cases probably developing here. I want to find the top writers on content marketing so that they can write a guest blog for me. I want to find the top writers on digital transformation because my company works in that space, and we want to find people that write about the topic to maybe review our product or our service, or maybe mention us as a good solution in that space. Or, and this is for any of you that are doing agency work or trying to get placements in publications, search popular sites that accept guest contributions. Searching for Forbes, for example, lets me know the top writers on Forbes and what they write about. So use author reports for your first line to find popular writers. You'll notice that with authors, we make it easy for you to get right back to that social profile view. Anywhere you see a little Twitter icon, that means that we have their profile indexed in our database. Just by clicking on their name, it will take me back into my bio search, and then I can again save that person to a list. All right, we're going to close here by talking about a slightly different way to find influencers. So this is really outside of the work we've just been doing in the influencers tool. And it's specifically focused on Facebook pages. Facebook pages is an interesting place to find influencers because the question is, how do you measure influence here? Do you measure it based on the size of their audience? Again, you could make the argument like Twitter that maybe somebody's building up a high follower count, but they don't get a lot of engagement. Facebook is a content-rich site. People spend a lot of money producing content, whether it's producing content and then promoting it on Facebook, or creating organic native content directly for their Facebook channels. And so looking at the performance of the content they produce is probably the most useful way to analyze whether a Facebook page might be a good influencer to target. So the focus here is less on their bio. It's not really on how they describe themselves. It's really on the content they produce. And so you want to take more of a keyword or topic-based approach. Here's my process for finding influencers on Facebook. First, I go to the content research section. I go to the Facebook analyzer and I click on search. Now, search can be done based on keyword or page, but let's assume that we don't know the pages yet. We're really looking for influencers based on topics and keywords. I'm a travel company and I want to find influencers in the travel space. So I'll start looking for travel terms. I'll pick two here, like travel tips and travel advice. Those feel very actionable topics or keyword phrases that will hopefully help me identify good content producers that I might want to engage with. And you can see, again, I'm using some basic search operators, which again, conveniently are located right below the search bar. And then I'm going to click Explore. Now, what I'm going to get back is a listing based on the top performing posts. So the highest number of engagements are going to be at the top. And as we scroll down, the engagements get a little bit less. That's okay. I mean, I would kill for 40,000 likes on something that I posted. Now, we see some big ones here that are great. Those are great. If we could develop a partnership with BuzzFeed, Tasty, that would be amazing. But let's kind of aim a little bit lower. So let's scroll past BuzzFeed, Tasty, and let's try to find some other ones. We hear Buy a Hero Seeds. We see Tech Travelite here. Herb is here. We see some international brands. We see some really potentially good targets for us. And as I scroll through results, I'm really looking for, good performing posts that seem to represent, the type of content that I might produce. And suddenly I come down this one. This one catches my eye, like Drew Binsky. 6 tips for traveling India. It's got an engagement on this post of about 10,000. So that's good. Maybe my travel company's a little smaller. Maybe I try to want to dig into what Drew does here. So step 1, I went to Content Analyzer. Step 2, I went to the Facebook search feature. And step 3 was I entered my search terms. Step 4, I'm going to drag and copy Drew's name. And I'm going to come back up to the search function, and I'm going to change my toggle from keyword to page. And I'm going to paste in Drew's handle. Now, all I've done is I've now changed the rules of my search. I'm no longer looking across the millions of Facebook pages in our database looking for posts about travel tips. I'm analyzing a specific page or sets of pages. I could look for multiple pages. But for this purpose, I'm just going to stick with Drew for the time being. And jackpot. It wasn't just a post that Drew produced. He produces content again and again. And if anything, all of this stuff is related to travel, even though some of it didn't map to the exact phrases I was looking for, like travel tips or travel advice. So amazing. I found all these other potential things I might be able to search for, while also finding a profile that consistently drives crazy high levels of engagement in my industry. Now, just to confirm, I don't just want to look at posts. I always want to analyze the whole page. Now, I don't want to get kind of a skewed view. Maybe Drew's been doing a lot the past couple months, or maybe Drew's posting levels are going down. So I want to get out of that post view and I want to analyze it. I want to look more at like a sort of data graph. And I can see that, yes, look, this most specifically, posts published over time. Since really September of last year, he consistently posts about the same amount every month. That's good. That means he's engaged. That answers our question about Drew consistently posts content to his page here. This is where he seems to be most active. So let's go find him here. Let's go engage with him here. So now I found an influential potential Facebook page. Again, I started with keywords. I found good targets. I then grabbed those pages and analyzed the page performance. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of what I had to share with you today. If there are any questions, again, go ahead and pop them into the chat. We got a few more minutes, I think, here to address any specific issues that you have. But while some of you might be putting in some questions for us to look at, let's just really quickly recap some fundamentals. These are the major sources of data influencers we track: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, blogs, and websites. Quick bit of fun information for you. Very, very soon, this list of data sets is also going to include YouTube. So keep your eyes on our pages, on our website for announcements. We are really, really close to launching YouTube data and YouTube influencer analytics as well. These are the data points we track across each channel. You want to pay attention to how much engagement our potential influencer drives if you're looking at them in the context of a specific social channel or content channel. Always think about what type of influencer you're looking for first. Cast a wider net. Influencers are more than just thought leaders and big names and the people that are always at the top of our LinkedIn feed. Influencers are anybody that can have a positive impact, that can help us grow the reach of our campaign, drive our bottom line, help us execute a sale, etc. Pay attention to where somebody seems to be most influential. Where do they drive the most engagement when they're creating content? And where do they most engage with their audience? Have they seemingly focused on one particular channel over more than others? That's probably the place where we're likely to both engage with them, talking about that content piece, contact piece, but also the place where they're likely to create content on our behalf. That's what I have for you today. I hope this has been really, really helpful for everybody. Maybe as a quick wrap up, I don't see any questions. So just kind of give you some follow-up advice, a little bit of housekeeping. If you are testing any of these strategies in the platform and you're running into trouble, or you just want to kind of talk through some things that you forgot to mention on the call, please leverage the chat window that's in the bottom right-hand corner. This is your one-stop shop to everything customer support at BuzzSumo. Start a conversation with our team, browse our knowledge base, see what other webinars we might be running, and feel free to recommend others. If you'd like to see us do one that could help you with a particular use case, please let us know so we can keep tackling different kinds of things in our webinar program. And it's a great place for you to view new research we've produced. I referenced the Facebook one during the call. This is the one we've got here, but we're getting set to do another one, a big headline study that we're super excited about. So be sure to keep your eye here as well, and you can subscribe to our mailing list. Shoot, I said I wasn't going to do any marketing on this call. So sorry, you don't have to subscribe to our mailing list if you don't want to. How's that? All right. Thanks, everybody, for your time today. It was really great to talk through this with you. I hope that I see you in BuzzSumo very, very soon. My pleasure, Christy. Great to chat. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday and the rest of your week. Bye, everybody.